He's sitting right here. I said, that's my last cigarette. How'd your wife like that crawl over?
No way.
I read all the side effects and I don't want to take that.
I take so many tablets I rattle.
I looked up Dr. Google and now I don't know what to believe.
Who comes up with the names for these medicines?
I hate taking medicines.
Hello, g'day everyone, and welcome to the Medicines Ed podcast. This podcast is for anyone who wants to know more about their medicines. It's for anyone who wants to feel more confident using them, because if you are more confident and clued up about your medicines, then you can make better choices about your health. You can make the choices that are right for you. I'm John, and I'm a pharmacist who loves to help people mind their own medicines.
Mind your 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 own medicines.
We all have a story to tell, and sometimes the same types of things will happen in our own lives. We'll learn from others how they take care of their health and the part medicines play in their lives. We'll learn more about the choices you can make. Now it's time for our disclaimer. This podcast is general health and medicines information only, and the content is not health advice. We're all unique, we're all special. So please consult your healthcare professional if you have any questions about your health. Now, let's jump into today's episode. G'day all. Today we're going to be chatting about something that can affect your lungs, something that can affect your breathing. It's called, and this is a mouthful, but it's called chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, or you can know it as COPD for short. Some of you might have heard that term bandied around before, COPD. And if we want to get technical, there's a few lung issues that are all classed as COPD. One is called emphysema. You often might hear that term. Another issue is called chronic bronchitis, and another one's called chronic asthma. But at the end of the day, what it means is that your airways get damaged. And these airways you can think of them as pipes or tubes in your lungs, and there's thousands of these things. They're all really small. And what happens is you end up with trouble for the air getting in and out. It just gets harder than normal for the air you breathe to get in and out of your lungs. And what that means is that you might get a bit more short of breath than you'd want to. So compared to your average person, it doesn't take as much for you to get puffed and get short of breath. And you also might end up with a bit of a cough, or cough a fair bit. And you might end up coughing up a fair bit of gunk as well. A lot of phlegm, clearing up a lot of gunk off your chest. Pretty soon we're going to hear from John, who has this COPD. And we're going to hear about some of the problems he has with his lungs. And you'll hear him talk about getting a bit puffed when he tries to do stuff around his place. And also hear him talk about coughing up the gunk off his chest. And you can also get something called flare-ups, or exacerbations is the technical term, but you can think of these a bit like chest infections, where for a few days or a few weeks, your lungs are a lot worse than they normally are. And these are no good. They can obviously make you feel pretty ordinary, but they can also knock out your lungs a bit, so that when you do come good, your lungs don't get quite back to the way they were. Your lungs aren't working quite as well as they were before you had this flare-up. So what you do want to do is obviously try and keep away from these things. Now with this COPD, unfortunately there's no way to cure it. There's no way to fix yourself for good from it. Unfortunately, it's with you for life, but there's some stuff you can do to make things a bit better and a bit more bearable, and hopefully help with some of the problems you can get with it. Now, as I said, you can't cure yourself from COPD. It's with you for life, but there is something that you can do to help slow it down. And I'm going to bang on about this a few times, so strap yourselves in. The thing you can do to slow down how bad your lungs get is give up the cigarettes if you do smoke. Smoking is one big reason that people do get COPD. But by giving up the cigarettes, it's the best thing you can do for your lungs, and it's the best thing you can do for COPD, and it'll help slow down how bad your lungs get. Now, I hear a lot of people tell me, I'm too old to quit. You're never too old to quit, people. Even a few weeks, a few months off the cigarettes, and your lungs will be feeling better. So you're never too old. Never say that. The other is, I've got to have one vice. Well, people, pick a healthier vice. Take up knitting. Go for walks on the beach. But give up the cigarettes. Find a different vice. They're no good, and they're certainly no good if you've got COPD. So that's my hot tip. Now, as I said, the big cause of getting COPD is through smoking, but there are other things that can cause it too. The other reasons you might get COPD is for breathing in different types of stuff. If you breathed in through your life a lot of, say, dust or chemical fumes, that can give it to you. Or if you've breathed in a lot of smoke or air pollution in your life, those sort of things can give you COPD as well later in life. So if you do have COPD, then what can you do about it? The big thing we've already talked about is giving up the smoking if you do smoke. That's by far the most important thing you can do. But surprise, surprise, there are medicines, there are puffers especially that you can use to help with COPD. And we'll talk a bit more about that later on. We'll also hear from John about using puffers too when we come to our chat with him. Some of the other stuff you can do to help if you have COPD is actually not rocket science. If you've got COPD, then you might be using a lot more energy than your average person to help you breathe. And to help with all of that increased use of energy, it's important to keep a good diet, also keep exercising. Just because your lungs may not be working as well as they used to, doesn't mean you just want to sit on a chair and do nothing. Keep active, do what you can, keep moving, it's really important. And also, look after yourself and try and get some good sleep. Another thing you can do to help with your lungs is what's called pulmonary rehabilitation or pulmonary rehab. You can think of this as like an exercise program for your lungs. It'll help your lungs work better, help the breathing get better, and also help you live better if you have COPD. You can have a chat to your doctor about maybe getting into a program near where you live. Another thing you can do if you have COPD, and this is good advice for anyone, is keep up to date with your vaccinations. If you keep on top of vaccinations, hopefully you can steer clear of some of these lung infections that you don't want to pick up. The final thing I'd like to mention is what's called an action plan. You can go to your doctor and they can draw one of these up for you. It's a plan on a sheet of paper that you can take home, and it'll give you an idea of how to look after yourself with COPD if things happen to get a bit worse. It'll get you clued up on what medicines you should maybe be using more of, or maybe what medicines you should start, and when you should maybe head back to your doctor or go to hospital if things get worse. It can help you get a lot more confident in what you're doing at home and get more in control of what you're doing for yourself. It's called an action plan, and it's worth having one on standby at home. Have a chat to your doctor about it. If you'd like any more information about COPD or any other thing that can affect your breathing and your lungs, then I'd encourage you to go to the Lung Foundation of Australia website. The website's great and it's worth a look. I also used the information on this website to help with the podcast. We'll jump in now to our chat with John. Please excuse the sound at some points. We had someone in the background using a power tool and also an alarm going off at one point. I hope you enjoy the chat, and I'll see you on the other side. Hooroo. Now, John, you live on your own bit of acreage here.
Yes, 10 acres.
A
Yes.
lovely bit of grass in front. We've got the dam out the front as well.
Yes,
And you get kangaroos come out on the grass?
I do. It's a very friendly area, buddy. I've got many ducks, the wood ducks, 25 of them, and about another 25, 30 of the Whistler duck.
Okay,
They come from Northern Territory.
okay.
They call this place home. So, yes, plenty of wildlife.
And you were just showing me a giant king cricket,
Yeah.
which is a massive thing.
Right, how would your wife like that crawl over?
No way.
I must be out of her skin, buddy.
She would not
So
be
would
happy.
I.
And you've obviously got a big property here.
Yeah.
And you were telling me earlier that you get a bit stuffed sometimes with your breathing. John just killed a mozzie.
Yep.
You find it tough to do stuff around the yard and around the house.
I do now. I'm feeling older. I'm nearly 82, and it's starting to make its presence felt. Yeah, I don't have the stamina that I used to have.
Your lungs give up on you a bit. You get a bit short of breath when you're doing stuff around the house.
I do. It's sort of gasping for air, and I don't really understand it.
And you said you used to be a smoker?
I did. Yeah, maybe 15 a day.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you smoked for a few decades?
60 of them.
60 of them, okay. Because what can happen is when you smoke, that can obviously stuff your lungs up a bit. It can give you a thing called emphysema, COPD. There's a few bronchitis, chronic bronchitis
Okay.
can give you. If you smoke, it can basically kill off some of your lungs.
Yeah.
Over time, it kills off more and more. And so when you want to do stuff later in life, you mainly notice later in life. When you want to do stuff, you don't have as much of your lungs left to help with your breathing.
Exactly. I think that is what's happened.
We've got an alarm going off.
Got a bit of hearing on me too. I didn't hear it.
Sounds like something's going to explode.
No, don't. Don't worry.
There we go, silence. So yeah, as you smoke, after decades, generally after a few decades of smoking maybe, you'll find that the cigarettes, whatever you smoke, kills off your lungs over time.
Sure.
And so it just can get worse and worse. And eventually enough of your lungs get killed off that maybe you'll find, as you've said, you get a bit stuffed when you try to do things.
Exactly, buddy.
You don't have the stamina you used to.
Yeah. That's why I found it easy when I made the call to stop smoking to do it. Because I knew it wasn't doing me any good whatsoever.
Okay. You got the sense it wasn't helping you breathing or helping anything?
No.
And you said you were able to give it up cold turkey.
I did. Just sitting right here. I said, that's my last cigarette.
That's impressive.
I'm done it.
Well, you said you get a bit short of breath when you're trying to do stuff. Other people find they might get issues with coughing up gunk. Well, they get this cough that can stay with them.
Well, I have had this persistent cough for years.
Yeah.
Now I have another one. It's come in the last few months, maybe 3 or 4, of thick phlegm cough. And I cough it up like a slug. Whether it's not smoking, my lungs are clearing, I don't know.
Some people will find in the first few months after they give up the cigarettes that they're more likely to start coughing up gunk.
I think that could be the case with me. Very thick mucus it is.
Hopefully over time that should settle down.
I hope so.
It shows your lungs are trying to, potentially what's going on is your lungs are trying to clear some of this gunk that's junk, yeah,
Of course.
from the cigarettes that's settled in their lungs.
I think that's true. I think that's my opinion as well.
Some people also find if they've got issues with this lung, with this emphysema, COPD type thing, is they can more likely to get chest infections.
Okay. That's COPD, that's marijuana oil, isn't it?
Well, that's CBD.
Oh,
Okay, not quite. Slightly different. There are some things you can do to help with your lungs.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously the best thing you can do is to give up the cigarettes.
Done.
So big tick for you.
Mm-hmm.
Tick that off. That's the best thing you can do.
Okay.
The other thing, you can get some puffers that you can use.
Okay.
And they can help anywhere from helping you with your breathing so you don't get quite as stuffed when you're trying to do stuff.
Sure.
Give you a bit more stamina, a bit more endurance.
Okay.
They can also help stop some of the coughing you might get. And some puffers can also help stop you getting chest infections.
All right.
Because if every time you get a chest infection, that can sometimes knock out how well your lungs work too.
Okay.
You can get a mix of puffers. Sometimes you can get a puffers that you use every day, regardless of how good or bad your lungs are, just to improve how they are and keep them working well.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can also get puffers that you'd use just maybe if you're getting a bit short of breath or before you want to go and do something.
Okay.
So there's variety.
Okay.
I'm going to recommend something to your doctor that might work well for you.
That sounds
help
good.
your breathing.
Good. Yeah, I find it very frustrating when I want to do this work. I've got to try and get all the bird shit off that deck and oil it and so on. And if I'm not going to be very persistent, I won't do it. I'll just sit here.
If your lungs aren't working, you can't do as much as you want.
No, exactly.
That can get frustrating.
It does.
Are you all clued up now?
Yeah, buddy. Yeah. Thanks for your time.
Change your life? Let's turn this thing off.
Okie dokie.
G'day again. Now that was our chat with John, learning about his lungs, the great thing that he was able to give up the cigarettes. And as we've mentioned earlier, if you've got issues with your lungs like COPD or emphysema, giving up the cigarettes is the best thing you can do. John was able to give up cold turkey. That's not the way it always works for everyone. There's a variety of different things you can do to help give up smoking, different things that you can use. Have a chat to your doctor or pharmacist about that. There might even be phone lines in your own state that you can ring and they can give you some help as well, some tips on what you could maybe do and help you along the journey. But if you've tried once to give up the cigarettes and it didn't work, try again. Every time you have a crack at it, you're potentially one step closer to kicking them for good. Now with John, we spoke briefly about some of the different puffers you can maybe use if you do have issues with COPD. There's puffers that you can use to help with your symptoms, to help maybe with the issues that you get day to day with COPD. These puffers can help make your breathing a bit easier so that you maybe don't get as puffed when you try to do stuff. Maybe it'll let you do a bit more when you do want to do stuff. They can also help stop and cut back on some of the coughing you might get. And there's also different medicines you can use that will help maybe stop some of these flare-ups, some of these chest-type infections you might get from time to time. And as we've said, keeping away from them is great because they can knock out a little bit how well your lungs work. So steering away from chest infections, obviously for anyone is good, but especially if you have COPD. So there's different types of medicines you can use to help with different aspects, different parts of the issues you can get with COPD. As well as different medicines you can use with COPD, there's 1,000 different types of puffers you can get. There's a huge different variety of puffers. And the beauty of this is that you can mix and match. There's something for everyone. We all have our own preferences, our own likes and dislikes with what we use. And if your doctor gives you a script for one type of device, which is a certain shape, and you don't really like it, you maybe struggle to use it a bit, or you don't like the taste of it, then there's always something else you can try. A puffer that's a different shape or works in a different way. So you can mix and match and find something that suits you. At the end of the day, if the first thing you're given doesn't work the way you want it to, go back to your doctor, chat to your pharmacist, and you can try something different. You can mix and match and find the right thing for you. And to simplify life, you can combine different medicines into the one puffer. So instead of having to maybe use 2 or 3 different puffers, you can potentially get away with maybe just 1 or 2. Makes life a lot easier. And even sometimes with some puffers you might need to use them twice a day. You can also get ones where you just need to use them once a day. Far more convenient, simpler to use. So once again, you can mix and match, find the thing that works for you. Another important thing with all of this is when you do get yourself started on some puffers is learning the right way to do it. It's worth spending some time with your doctor or your pharmacist, getting them to show you how to use them, and also use it in front of them so they can see what you're doing and maybe give you some tips so the puffers work better for you. There's also videos you can find online that will show you how to use each different type of puffer you can get, just so you know you're using it the right way. It's worth investing in that, getting it right from the start, because what can happen is you might come across people who've been using these puffers for years and years and years, and they don't use it quite right, and their lungs aren't getting the benefit they could. Their lungs aren't feeling as good as they could just because they're not using the puffer quite right. They're not getting as much of the medicine into their lungs as they possibly could. And the more you can get into your lungs, the better it's going to be for you, the better it's going to work. So spend some time getting what's called a technique right, learning to use the puffers the right way so they work the best for you. And finally, if you are on some puffers for your breathing and they're designed to be used every day, as I mentioned to John in our chat, try and use them every day. Even if your lungs are feeling pretty good and you're not having many worries that day with your breathing or your coughing or whatever, keep plugging away and using them every day. Because what they'll also do is keep your lungs in good shape and hopefully prevent them getting worse the next day or the day after that. If you keep using them every day, they'll keep them in as best shape as possible. What you don't want to do is, if you're feeling good, cut back on how often you use your puffers, maybe skip them for a few days, and then your lungs get worse, and then you go back on it again. If you keep on it regularly, hopefully your lungs will stay as good as they can so they don't go backwards from time to time. There you go. That was a little bit about COPD and the different medicines you can use and the different things you can do to help your lungs if you do have COPD. I hope you enjoyed our chat with John and you're feeling more confident around the different types of medicines, the different types of puffers that you can use for COPD, and a bit more comfortable taking the time to find the right sort of puffers that are going to work for you and fit in with how you want to live your life. At the end of the day, it's worth taking the time up front to find the types of puffers that are going to work best for you and know how to use them really well so they do the best thing they can for your lungs. Thanks a lot for listening. Hooroo. You can find information about any of the websites we spoke about in today's episodes in the show notes. Thanks to my brother Robert Woodward for expertly writing and playing the music on today's podcast. Please subscribe and follow the podcast so you don't miss an episode. You can also follow Medicines Ed on Facebook and LinkedIn. If you're interested in working with us, then please get in touch by email at info@medicinesed.com.au. Please feel free to also send us an email if you have any questions or would like to make a comment about the podcast. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time. Hooroo!